All right. Welcome to this week's edition of Easy Game Radio. It is the 21st of April, 2025. Going to talk about the RBC Heritage down in South Carolina, the Punta Cana down in the Dominican Republic. Going to finally dabble into some of the off course drama, kind of social media politics, a little bit of headline, which I've tried not to do on the podcast just because there's so much just available anyway. It's kind of hard to get into kind of interesting facts or unknown details, which I try to do on the show. But going to talk about Wes Bryant and his decision to join a live event ahead of a PGA event that he was supposed to play in and was denied access to. And then also the Zurich this upcoming weekend in New Orleans. Especially excited for it because I will be going to one of the rounds. So first, down at the RBC in South Carolina, Justin Thomas, his win drought is finally over. He had 1,064 days since his last win. He's had a kid since then. 3 years ago feels like a lifetime to say 2022. But JT back in the winner's circle, 31 years old from Louisville, Kentucky. JT is a former world number one. Entered the weekend as world number 8, finished world number 6 now. So kudos to JT for the win. He also tied the course record on Thursday with a -10 to open up his tournament weekend. But his last win was the 2022 PGA Championship. And I went back through some of his records. I wanted to kind of pull something interesting that we might not have heard coming out of the weekend. But this was JT's 7th playoff that he has ever had. And he has won 5 of those 7 playoffs. So I got a little bit curious of just how common it was to see a large amount of playoff wins with some of the biggest names throughout golf history and PGA history, especially. So looked up Arnold Palmer. He had 24 playoffs in his career with a 14-10 record, and Tiger had 12 with an 11-1 record. So I think that's a little bit of the Tiger effect coming in, only dropping one championship playoff in a PGA Tour event. Really no surprise to hear that out of Tiger. But Justin takes his 7th playoff, 5th win out of that. Nick Dunlap, this poor guy, he shot a 90 at Augusta. He had this weekend's worst score with a +7 on Thursday. So Nick just struggling right now, as we saw after his 90 in Augusta. Some other interesting notes from the weekend. The RBC did not feature a cut. So every player that entered on Thursday saw through to Saturday. Justin took home $3.6 million. His playoff losing opponent, Andrew Novak, took home 2.1. Kind of interesting as well, the change with the caddy, Justin Thomas getting Max Homa's caddy, Joe Greiner, on the bag at Augusta. He comes in the second week on the bag, he takes home a win. And if we use that 10% math rule that you hear about where the player's caddy is paid 10% that comes out of the player themselves, he's looking at about $350K in 2 weeks. So Joe Greiner having a year, unfortunately for Max, who was not in this event, but good to see positive things for JT. This event also allowed rangefinders, one of the tour's efforts to speed up pace of play. Brian Harmon had comments after the tournament, basically saying that he thinks it did have a positive outcome. He cited an example where he was on the wrong fairway, didn't have one of the distances in his yardage book, and he was able to bust out the laser and speed up the time that it would have took. So agree with that. I don't really feel like this was a good event to test the rangefinder impact because they played in groups of 2. There were no foursomes throughout the weekend. There's no cut, and the conditions were very, very calm. The wind was friendly. I don't think that there was a lot of math that had to go into the RBC. So I don't think we really got to see the full impact of having rangefinders in a PGA Tour event. I'm skeptical of rangefinders being put in players' hands because I think that the faster players, they will have to take just a little bit extra time and their routines will be modified, but they'll use the rangefinder quickly. But I think that the players that are second guessing and kind of just doing a lot of math on the course are just going to have another thing to consider. So my verdict is still out on the impact that the rangefinders will have, but cool to see the tour making those efforts to improve the quality of the game, especially for spectators, but the players as well. These guys don't want to be out there. I think the times still ran to the 4.5 hour mark on Sunday. So still not fast, but that's where I really can't blame these guys for taking time. You're talking about millions of dollars riding on very, very important shots. So RBC, great event, great ending too, seeing that playoff and seeing JT go on to win. There was a parallel event, the Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic. Watched Joel Dahmen just have an amazing start, but then also just having an agonizing defeat, just a total meltdown on his last 3 holes. Garrick Higo would go on to win his second PGA Tour victory. 25-year-old is from South Africa. He played college golf at UNLV, and this win gets him a 2-year exemption onto the tour, but it does not get him invited to the Masters. Joel Dahmen, absolute meltdown on Sunday. Just had a terrible last 3 holes. He missed a 1-foot putt on 17 after he already bogeyed 16, and then he couldn't even knock down that 8-footer for par on 18. Joel, he's hard on himself. We saw that on Netflix in the first season where there was an episode dedicated to him and kind of talking about his mental health and his lack of confidence. It's almost like he doesn't believe that he can win, even though he is clearly one of the best players in the world. I want to chalk it up to him changing his hat. He's always worn that signature wide brim kind of bucket hat. And as I was catching some of the event live and then watching some of the replays, he was wearing a baseball hat. You just don't change those things. That's bad juju. No, that didn't really impact him. Just that mental fortitude. Golf is hard for all levels. The top players in the world versus the local amateur weekend hack. Golf is hard for anybody. Your mind is going to fail you just as quickly, if not more quickly and more often than your physical performance. Your swing might not feel that great, but if your mind is good, you can figure out a way to piece it together. But once the mind goes, the score goes with it. Joel Dahmen in his post-round presser on Sunday said, "I think I'm in a little bit of shock, honestly. It's not how you win a golf tournament, I'll tell you that. I didn't deserve to win it. Bogeying the last 3 holes is inexcusable. This one could take a while to get over. It's one of those things you learn more in defeat, unfortunately. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Like I said, I think I'm still in a little bit of shock." So Joel's hard on himself, like we saw on Netflix, as I said. He's got a lot to be proud of. He has now risen from ranking 175 in the world golf rankings all the way up to 140 with this weekend's performance. So that's positive news. And he does have 2 top 10 finishes in 2 different major events since 2019. So Joel Dahmen, hard on himself. It's been good to see him play well this year. Do I think he's going to get a tour win this year? No. Do I think that he's going to continue to have success? Of course. It's just going to be interesting to watch how he plays. I just don't think we'll get a lot of coverage from him, so you'll really have to find out and look for how he's doing. But yeah, just a really unfortunate meltdown for Joel at the Punta Cana. So talking about news outside of the ropes down in the Dominican Republic, in the week before, the week back when Liv was in Miami, they created a creator classic type of event, similar to the PGA's Creator Classic, where they paired up YouTube golfers, internet golfers, with some of the pros from the Live Tour. Wesley Bryant decided to enter this tournament as one of those creators, still being a PGA Tour card-carrying member. And because of the Live and PGA dilemma, that's not allowed. And there's been a large uproar ever since then because the PGA has now banned Wesley from entering future events, i.e. the Punta Cana, that he was supposed to play in. So just in the days before, he gets told he can't play. He's still on the grounds. He was there watching the event, but he now has a ban from future PGA events with no known end date in sight. So internet throws a fit about it. Even Phil Mickelson posted basically saying, the PGA is just awful and this is hypocrisy at its finest and blah, blah, blah. I get it, but I agree with the tour. And I think some folks are forgetting that the Live Tour also has penalties for its players going outside of live sanctioned events such as DP World Tour for the European guys. They do financial, fines against players that choose that. They don't do outright bans. There's just no way that Wes didn't know what the outcome of this was going to be. He's got an agent, he's got a handler. I think he knew what he was doing. I think he knew that this would get headlines and would get attention. I think his current PGA career looks a little bleak. He's not in the marquee events. The ones he's played in, he doesn't finish very high in. His money and his career right now is made on YouTube, and it's made on clicks. And this is going to get clicks. People are going to start watching for him. The rumors of maybe he goes to live now and they grab him up, and the free Wesley campaign on the internet going on. But there is just no way that this was a surprise for Wesley Bryant, that this outcome was going to follow his actions. Do I think it's a little harsh? Yeah, I do. Right now, no. I think it's actually appropriate for the times because of the dilemma that the PGA and the Live Tour are facing together. Do I think it shows a problem? And that it's unfortunate that the PGA Tour had to make the decision. Yes, of course. But that just reflects back onto how do we get these tours to be unified again? How do we figure out a way for maybe players to be allowed exemptions into certain events across tours? Maybe that's a way ahead to see some of the names cross lines and be able to play commingled tournaments again. So I think still good outcomes can come from the experience. Wesley, I don't see him being eligible for a PGA event again this year and possibly through next year. There's going to be repercussions with it, something to keep an eye on. But interesting that he makes his decision right before he's supposed to play in a PGA event, and he gets told basically, nope, straight to jail. Sorry, Wes. So wrapping up this short episode, looking ahead to this weekend, the Zurich down in New Orleans. I'm going. I don't know which day I'm going. I think it's Saturday. Maybe it's Friday. I don't know. Wife surprised me with it for my birthday. Cool event, very asymmetrical event. This is a team format. They switch between round of 4-ball, best ball, and then they go into foursomes, basically alternating shot. After that, there are 80 teams consisting of 2 players each. There is a cut after the second round. The top 33 teams and ties advance to the weekend. Both men on the winning team will get a 2-year exemption on tour, spots in the PGA Championship, as well as next year's Century and Players Championship. It counts as an official tour win for both players, though no world golf ranking points are given. Players are paid out in a kind of split the difference. So, if Shane and Rory win, they split the points, they split the purse that's allotted for those slots. There are 400 points for each winner for the FedEx Cup available, and the total purse is $9.2 million. Each member of the winning team would earn 1.3 of that purse. So 2.6 to the pair, 1.3 each, as well as 400 points for each winner. Last year's winners were Shane and Rory. They are returning to defend. Some other key pairings, and this is in favorites order according to DraftKings. Mentioned Shane and Rory. We've got Kurt Kitayama, Colin Morikawa paired together, Thomas Dietrich and Robert McIntyre, JT Poston and Keith Mitchell, followed by Taylor Moore and Wyndham Clark, rounding out the top 5 favorite pairings. Other mentions, not necessarily in pairings as I say these, but they are playing. We will see Sahith Theegala playing. Billy Horschel will be there. Akshay, Toasty, and then always cool, Matt Fitzpatrick will be playing with his brother, Alex Fitzpatrick. So they'll be paired together. And then we'll also see Siwoo Kim out there. Overall, again, PGA Tour and golf, this has just been an outstanding season. We're rounding out the month of April, first major in the bag, with Rory just, creating so many memories. You can listen to last week's episode and hear me gush over that. But at Kyle Porter, who posts just great golf headlines on his social media, he caught these highlights. 1, Rory wins the Players in a playoff. Victor Hovland beats JT at the Valspar. Min Woo beat Scotty down in Houston. Rory did Rory magic at the Masters. And then this last weekend, JT gets his first win in forever in a playoff fashion. On top of that, before the season started, we had the TGL, love it or hate it. still something great to talk about, more golf to watch. Think about it. It was January when that was starting. So the season's been outstanding, and I think it's going to shape up to be the same way as we go further into the majors. More news will come out of the Live and PGA Tour, scandal, dilemma, debacle, whatever you want to call it. But the 2025 season has been remarkable so far. So that wraps up this week's episode of Easy Game Radio. I'm going to be pushing towards YouTube a little bit, posting some of the shorts there. It's easier to get more exposure on YouTube and hit their algorithm than it is Instagram. But check us out there. I also published to more podcast providers, so you should be seeing iHeartRadio as well as some other ones. And you can, again, search Easy Game Radio in any of those major platforms, and you will find the show. So that concludes this week's episode. Next week, be back Monday with some on-course observations from the Zurich. I can only imagine what the crowds are going to be like following Shane and Rory. I think overall, a lot of the names don't really motivate me that much, but Shane and Rory are going to draw a large buzz, so that's going to be exciting. Hope everyone has a great week. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening. Remember to visit us at easygameradio.com. Follow us on Instagram at Easy Game Radio, and subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts.